Welcome to the Windows Computer and Technology channel. And one of the questions that popped up, and I've seen that in the past a few times, is the fact that there's people plug in different devices like a printer, for example, and there's a need for a driver. This has always been the way it works with Windows: is the need for drivers to have a device work. And this comes from the old days. If you remember, for some of you that have been there for a long time, you might notice that there were, in the past, what we called intelligent devices. And these devices didn't really require any drivers. And an example of that is the smart modems of the past, where you would plug them in. And what happened is that you could talk to them. They were complete kind of small computer devices. You just sent, the commands to do what you wanted, and it did what you asked for. But of course, then after a certain amount of time, they've gone to the point where most devices today actually are controlled by Windows, and Windows needs to actually talk to them. And the need for drivers is not Windows only. Contrary to one comment that I've seen that said, well, on Macs, we don't need drivers. Everything on the Mac OS is as drivers that actually explain to the operating system how the devices work. It's every operating system today needs a form of driver. They are different. They are not made in the same way, but they do the same tasks, whether you're on Linux, on Mac OS, or Windows. So when you plug a device, there needs to be a driver for that device to be downloaded and installed, because it's actually what's going to explain to Windows and any operating system what and how to use the device. Windows by itself cannot contain naturally all the required information for every device unless every single device would have exactly the same controller. If every device would be made exactly in the same way, then yes, we could have devices that would technically not require drivers. Windows could have the operating set of instructions to access everything. Now, there are millions of devices and millions of different ways to access these devices and controllers and chips. So, when that device is plugged in, Microsoft looks at it and sees that there's something there. Then it will actually try to identify it by having some information that it can get. And that information will often be a serial number or some information that the device can give Windows. Say, hey, I'm in, Epson printer, this model. And what's going to happen is that in most cases, not always, but in most cases, Windows itself will actually have a way of installing a driver. So it will understand what it is. It will download the required driver and install it, and then the device will start working. It can happen sometimes that you need to download a specific driver yourself, because there are devices that Windows does not actually know what they are. Mostly more obscure devices that could be used in very specific tasks, for example. I've got a few of those here, which are very specific devices that, they're not mainstream. So Windows has no idea what that is when you plug it in. You go to the manufacturer website and download the drivers. So the device manager actually gives you the list of all the drivers that are used in your computer for the different controllers and the different devices that are plugged in. So this actually gives you an idea of everything that you have on your device. And of course, this is where everything happens. If a device doesn't work, device manager is the place to go and see if something's wrong. If it behaves wrong, then maybe an updated driver is required. But everything requires a driver, and that is been the case since Windows 3. And even in DOS, we needed to have software added in DOS way back before Windows that actually explained how to use a CD-ROM device, for example. It wasn't part of the system. And even the devices that don't download drivers still need a driver. So, for example, I just talked about, CD-ROMs or DVDs. Well, they actually have an embedded driver that is already recognized, kind of a universal driver for all of these devices. But it's still there and it still has a driver. It needs that and it requires that to actually work. So, like I said, drivers really are there to explain to Windows how a specific device works and how to access that device. If you enjoy my videos, please subscribe, give us thumbs up. Thank you for watching.